This is A Line Around Your Thoughts, a podcast that centers on conversations with artists, writers, musicians, and creatives from around the Inland Northwest. I'm your host, EJ Iannelli. Joining me today in the Roquehart Media Studio are Ashley Demoville and Claire Ray Edmo. Ashley is the Dean of Visual, Performing, and Applied Arts at Spokane Falls Community College, and Claire is the second and current SCHET Artist in Residence at SFCC. So welcome, Ashley, and welcome, Claire.
Happy to be here.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're here. And, Claire, I have to say that with a lot of artists, I end up speaking with them and, they've amassed, several years in the business or in the industry and, have, what I'm trying to say is that they're not at the beginning of their career. Mm-hmm. And I find that's a really welcome opportunity to be able to talk to you today, because there's so many years ahead of you and so many opportunities. So I definitely want to end up talking about what work you've done so far and what you've got planned as part of this artist in residency. Mm-hmm. But Ashley, with the the residency that makes Claire's presence possible, this is a program that launched in April of last year.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And can you talk about some of the genesis behind this program? Was it something that was occasioned by the Applied Arts building?
No, actually. The planning predates the new building quite a bit.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the planning began in two different spaces. The department, the fine art department, has long wanted a residency and spoke about it. Now, fine artist residencies like this are quite uncommon in community colleges. So it was never really something that it always felt really far off, I think, for the department. And then Cosette Phillips came in about 4 years ago as one of the new instructors, new tenured track professors, and as the gallery director. And she has experience personally in artist residencies. She traveled herself and has a deep commitment. So she had long wanted to create an artist residency. And so when she came in, she brought that with her and really ignited discussions and started planning from the very beginning when she first came to the college, and exploring how to make it possible. The department was completely on board from the beginning, trying to help her and figure out what could be done. And then, of course, once the movement toward opening the new building got closer and closer, it just coincided so beautifully with the Artist in Residence program.
Yeah, it seemed to me like the timing made it almost a natural fit. And my assumption was that the fact that the building or the genesis of the building and the fact that came into existence, maybe precipitated this in some way. But it sounds like, obviously the building was in planning for many, many years as right. well. So maybe it was just fortuitous timing in that regard.
I think so. And there was also, I think there was a bit of a catalyst. Having the new building really being at the precipice of opening helped us take that step, to help Cosette be able to get some of the sponsorship that she needed, some of that support to really get it off the ground. And so,
maybe just in terms of, so I can get things straight in my head, we have this building and we have the artist residency, which are not mutually exclusive, are somewhat related, but not, super tightly related. Yeah. The building itself, what has that allowed SFCC to do that it couldn't do before? And that might seem self-evident to you, and there's probably a lot to unpack. But yeah.
Right. That's a great question. I mean, it's been an amazing transition into the new building. We are blessed with the most phenomenal faculty, I think. I don't think it's an extreme to say that we have one of the, if not the strongest programs in the region. We have around 7 full-time faculty who bring with each of them this wealth of experience. And they've been teaching generations of students in our old building for decades, in a building that really offered nothing but space. I mean, ultimately, if we're going to get down to the brass tacks. And so, despite the building, they were running just amazing programming. Being able to take this step into this new building with spaces in all of these disciplines in fine arts, in addition to photography and filmmaking, allowed the instructors to really build their own processes. We have a number of areas where instructors weren't able to teach everything they wanted to because we just didn't have the space or the facilities or the equipment, and now we do. So they get to dream, they get to build. There's curriculum in the works to offer new courses, and it's really just expanded what we've been offering for a long time. I think the other really huge impact of this building is the way it uplifts our students. It's been just amazing to be in the building and see students come in, especially in fall. You know, when they're first coming to the college and they walk in and see this space that just, I mean, it immediately signals to them, SFCC, the state of Washington, cares about the arts. We want you here. We value the arts enough to provide these amazing spaces to teach students.
Yeah, and it's what the footprint is about 60,000 square feet. Is that right?
Yeah, it's quite large.
And just some of the amenities that it offers that you didn't have before. Am I right in thinking it has a bronze foundry? You know, just among many other things.
You know.
You know, just
And they'd been teaching bronze casting for years, but weren't able to do it very frequently because they had to, you know, create the space, kind of a makeshift space as they went. And so I think artists are amazing at making things happen even without the resources. But now we have this foundry and we can teach it regularly. We have the spaces that just align with industry standard and allow teachers to not spend hours creating makeshift opportunities. They can just walk in and do the work. It's amazing.
And so with this artist in residency program, so you said that Cosette came in and had this idea, and the rest of the faculty was pretty receptive to it.
Absolutely.
Now, let's kind of lay the groundwork for me for what this artist in residency program aims to accomplish and why it has the focus it does. You know, and I think a lot of these things will probably be self-evident, but you know, it's worth reminding folks, you know, why some of these goals were set out.
Right. That's a great question. I think that the role of artist residencies in the country, you know, internationally, cannot be overstated. I think the kind of the whole infrastructure of arts education and artistic growth really relies on this component of giving emerging artists an opportunity to focus on their own craft with some kind of support, whether it's spaces or monetarily, especially in between their undergraduate study and whatever that next step is going to be for them. So it's a really vital part of the kind of infrastructure of building a community of artists. And one of the elements of this that was most important to Cosette was making sure that it was a funded residency, which is huge. There are many artist residencies around the country, but there are few that offer complete support so that the artist can come, has a place to live, is able to feed themselves, doesn't have to think about doing other work. They can really focus on building their own skills and on their own growth while they're here.
And also it focuses on Indigenous artists specifically. And again, you know, when I talk about things, that was one of the components that I think should be self-evident. You know, why this would be something we'd want to foster. But again, if you could explain, maybe tease out in a bit more detail why it was important to Cosette, why it was important to SFCC in particular, and the faculty to focus on Indigenous artists.
I think that for many institutions, and especially in Washington State in the last few years, there's a rejuvenated sense of obligation and desire to support the work of Indigenous artists. And it's can be a challenge to discover how, right? And you know, many institutions jump to having, you know, land statements. But it's been very hard for a lot of institutions to figure out what to do of substance. And so at SFCC, there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of talk about how we can build our collaborations. We have new roles on campus, the Indigenous director and folks who are working with the tribes to make sure that our presence on the land is actually serving the people of the land as much as we possibly can. So this is just one of a number of initiatives that we're working on, and I think this is really vital, working with tribes and working with Indigenous individuals to find out what they need, what they want from us. And so it's the one big, very, very important goal is that we're not saying, here's what we want to create for Indigenous peoples. Let's do it. It's finding people, finding tribes to work with and asking them what they want. And so this residency, the whole point of the residency, we're bringing Claire in and offering as many resources as we possibly can for her to choose what she wants. So she can choose what resources from what's available that she wants to explore. So we've got this huge building with all these different disciplines and all the support and all the equipment. And we'll just follow whatever she wants to explore for herself and see what she makes of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned land acknowledgments, and not to provide a cynical take, but sometimes that can seem very gestural. And, I think of it as the difference between word and deed. Right. And so the land acknowledgments are good and a necessary component, and, it's good that these have been adopted. But to me, the artist in residency seems like it's translating some of that sentiment into action. And providing opportunities for folks like Claire and Nana, who was the inaugural the inaugural artist in residence. And just out of curiosity, did she? I don't want to put you in a position of speaking for her, but I'm curious if she offered any feedback to you or Cosette about what the artist in residency program meant to her when all was said and done.
Right. Don't feel comfortable, like you established, speaking for her. But what I can say is that it's been amazing watching her begin to promote and release the work that she's done, that she did during the residency. She's just started to share pieces in social media, and she has them kind of out that are just breathtaking. And it's amazing because, of course, from my perspective, I don't get to see the work in the room, and I just see it coming out a few months later. And it just brought me to tears the other day, looking at some of her new pieces that she attributed to the residency period.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So from your perspective, and I'm sure you've had discussions with Cosette about this, like that inaugural residency. It's always a bit of a trial period, and so you figure out what works and what doesn't. But what were some of the takeaways from that? Now that Claire's coming in and hopefully gets to benefit from some of this fine tuning, what were some of the takeaways from the inaugural residency?
There was so much, and we've had a number of meetings trying to figure out, how we can continue to grow every single year. There was so much excitement on campus about having Inanna with us last year. And this isn't anything that she shared, but in our discussions, it became really clear when looking at it, she was inundated with requests to come guest speak and to collaborate on projects. And so that is something that we have really looked at, how we can support the artist, and of course give them as much freedom as possible to choose the projects that they engage with, while at the same time trying to help them not be so inundated with requests and with projects that they have a hard time deciding how to spend their 3 months.
Yeah, and she was considered an emerging artist as well. I mean, she was at a very early stage in her career as well. So I'm assuming that it was beneficial just from that. Even just, I guess, getting to grips with some of the things that are expected of you, like sitting in on podcast interviews and doing some of the media rounds and that sort of thing. It's good exposure to that as well.
Right. Well, and I think there's a lot of exposure depending on the artist and what they want to explore. Of course, first and foremost, it's the discipline, exploring the actual art. Um, but there's also so many opportunities to work with our current students, which is another benefit of this program is to bring that knowledge and expertise and curiosity from our visiting artists to our current students. Um, and Inanna did choose to engage in a fair amount of that. She gave a number of guest lectures and developed these relationships on campus, and really inspired students, current students.
Yeah, and you had mentioned how you or SFCC is working with tribes directly to maybe help promote the program, and so I'd like you to muse on that. And you've sat by so patiently as we've talked about these kind of programmatic aspects, and so I'd like to focus on your career thus far and some of the art that you've been producing, because I had a nosy around your artist portfolio page, but you are a very recent graduate of University of Idaho, is that correct? Yeah. So yeah, you did a BFA as well? Okay. Did you have a particular emphasis in anything within that BFA?
Yeah, I did. So my main emphasis was in painting, but I also do printmaking as well. So there's those. But I mainly do oil painting, any type of painting, honestly. Oil, acrylic, watercolor. But oil painting is like, it can be so like toxic and all of that, like to like your area, your studio, and yourself and your health, that I don't do it in my own home because I'm too scared to do that. I'm like so scared of like the fumes messing up the air, and then
All the solvents,
yeah, and then sometimes they can combust, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I don't want that to happen. So I do mainly acrylic and watercolor. So that's what I do nowadays. I don't do printmaking as much anymore, but painting is my main focus right now.
And so where did all this stem from? I'm guessing that at some point in your childhood or your teenage years, you got bit by the bug, and you said, this is where, or the path on which I would like to proceed. So what was that turning point or that revelatory point for you?
I'd say it was when I was applying to college. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. At first, I wanted to go into nursing somewhere in Arizona.
Oh, really?
That's what I wanted to do. And then COVID hit, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I was like, okay, what's something that I love to do? And I love art. And I've been drawing my whole life. I remember growing up, I made so many pictures for my grandma, and I give them to her, and I have a lot of memories of that. And then in high school, I took so many art classes. I retook so many art classes. And then eventually, when it came to applying to college, I decided I'm going to do what I love. And I love art. And sometimes art can be a little like, you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's not stable. But I knew I'd figure it out.
In terms of a career, like
in terms of career, yeah. So that was sorry, I just
no, I mean, and it's a valid concern, and I think every artist has heard this at some stage in their life. How are you going to make a living?
Yeah.
I mean, but especially given the economy at certain points in our history, no profession is necessarily safe, and so there's that element of uncertainty with any profession, and. I'm sure people far wiser than me have said, look, just kind of do it and worry about the economics a little bit later if that is where your heart leads you. In terms of, so you've talked a bit about the media in which you work, but in terms of subject matter, now it seems that most artists, as they're finding their voice, start to develop certain themes. And certain subject matter that they enjoy depicting or enjoy representing. What has that been for you? I see in your work a lot of very natural themes, but I'd rather you say that rather than me tell you what your subject matter is.
Yeah. So these past few years, it's mainly been landscapes and all of that, more like organic. Shapes, structures, all of that, anything to do with nature, anything being outside and all of that. which is kind of ironic because I don't like being outside that much.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
but like I like being outside, but like being outside, I don't know how to describe it.
So
Like,
are you more of you're more of an indoor person
yeah, I
than
am.
okay.
So being outside, it does give me a lot of inspiration, especially like the trees and like landscape. I love mountains. I love mountains and sunsets in the sky and clouds. Those are my favorite things to paint. So it's mainly landscapes. And then I have one project where I did like an abstract landscape. Like I cut up buckskin and I placed them in certain places and cut it out in different shapes to make like an abstract landscape. Like it looks like a landscape, but like at first glance it might.
I see.
So, yeah, it's on my portfolio.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that caught my attention was I think you've done what could be considered triptychs. And so there was one triptych that was in a circular format, and through the fields, through the mountains, through the forest. And these were all similarly themed, but seemed very, very textural. So I was wondering if you could talk about the media that were involved in that, and why you chose the titles and some of the subject matter.
Yeah, so those 3 paintings, I made them for my graduating BFA show. And so the inspiration behind those was my childhood and growing up until graduation. And so the meaning behind the titles is mainly because there's so many phases and so many moments you live throughout growing up, and then so many phases that you go throughout college as well, for me specifically. And I wanted to put it as like, you're like walking through like a field or walking through like mountains or trees, and it's like it's all a different experience wherever you go, and you have different thoughts, moments. You're a different person every day, every moment of your life, or different moments of your life. And so it was mainly like I'm walking through this place, but I'm learning a lot and I'm changing a lot, and at the end of that, who am I? Like who do I become after that, and what's next? And it's like, and then you think back on those moments and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that moment. Something like that. And it's mainly all based off of like my childhood, how I grew up, where I grew up and where I went to college, because that was a big moment for me. I grew a lot and I met so many people there, and I cherish that place so much.
And
So
did you have any artists in your family that you could maybe use as touchstones, or are you the first making this foray?
I had an uncle. He was a painter. He's not here anymore. So, but I don't have a lot of memories. I don't have any memories with him, but I remember there is one painting that my aunt has of his, and I remember painting, or no, sorry. I remember that painting from when I was really young, and so although I don't have a lot of memories with my uncle, I do remember that painting, and I remember seeing it a lot growing up, and I think that influenced me to want to paint as well. So, but my grandma, she was a beater, and she was pretty well known, I think, down in like Phoenix and down there, because she lived with us in Fort Hall, and she would send a lot of her beadwork to Phoenix, and it would get sold there. And so there was that. But I'm like the first one to actually go for an art degree,
Right.
And then continue on with it.
Well, and the reason I was curious is because there's this mixed media quality. And when I said there was this textural quality to, Into the Woods, Into the Fields, is because these aren't just, standard, what I would say landscape representations. You've also interwoven them. And it's hard to tell from a picture what exactly that material is, but there's something woven throughout, like ribbon-like. And I was curious as to what that was, and then what the metaphor was that led you to do that.
Yeah, so the paper is called Kozo paper, and I just watercolored it. It's a really thin, it's like almost like rice paper. It's really thin and flowy, and I printed just memories and a small story of my childhood relating to that moment in the painting, like that they coincide with each other. And sorry, what was the next was the other
Well,
part?
no,
Sorry.
it was sort of the metaphorical representation. You know, anytime there's
okay.
something, like, for example, the kozo paper that's woven
Yeah.
throughout. I'm guessing that's meant to symbolize something.
Yeah, mainly I wanted to. So the paper is really flowy and all of that, and it drapes down, and so you can't see some of the words. I wanted to make the piece a little more interactive with the viewer, so they had to like move around to see what it says. And then also, like, there's some parts that I don't show, like, so the parts that are draped over are probably parts that I don't want to show others maybe, but I'm still sharing them through the words. But if someone wants to read them, they gotta, like, look around the piece or look around me or talk to me, all of that, get to know me, to know those parts of me. And so
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It requires a little effort on the
Yeah.
part of the viewer.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have standard watercolors, like The End of Warmth.
Yeah.
Did I get that title right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, another kind of landscape painting, but, by giving it that title, then suddenly I'm inclined to read a little more into it. And so I was wondering if maybe you would kind of share where it derives its title.
Yeah, so that painting I did was for Plus Plein Air, which is a annual show in Moscow held by the city of Moscow. And I was in that one this past year, 2025, and I painted it for that. And the idea behind that one is because I painted it on a cold day and it was still like considered summer. And so I was like, okay, well, it's not summer anymore technically. So to the end of warmth, it was cold that day, but it was still sunny out, but it was windy and all of that. So, but it's also, besides that, it was also because I'm not from Moscow. I didn't grow up in Moscow, but I love the place. I've been living there for the past 4 years, basically. And I know at some point I'm going to leave. I'm going to move somewhere else, live somewhere else. And it's sort of like a end of a happy warmth, you could say.
Yeah.
Like
that embracing coziness.
Yeah, like I have to leave this place. I have to leave the comfort of this place that I love, and just accept that. Like, it's gonna come soon. I don't know when, but it's gonna come at some point.
Well, you're here in Spokane now, so I hope your welcome has been. I mean, despite the chilly weather, I hope the welcome here has been warm.
Yeah, so. It has been. It's been awesome. I'm really happy to be here.
And I don't want to go through, itemize every single piece in your portfolio, but there were a couple representative pieces that stuck out. And another one was apple pie. And so now that you mentioned the kozo paper, I was wondering if this was kozo paper as well, because it was like a lattice that sort of colored lattice type paper that was woven together.
Yeah, so it's actually not kozo paper. Okay. It's just watercolor paper that I watercolored, and then I just painted it in like a more like a marble type way, and then I just cut it up and wove them together, and that's how it came up with that. And the title, the idea behind the title is that one of my professors held it up and was like, apple pie. And I was like, I'm just going to call it apple pie, because every time I look at that piece, I'm like, oh, it reminds me of her. And yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So that, in several cases, the titles were kind of thrust upon you, but they seemed like a natural fit.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, that's the title.
And then you mentioned, is it your grandmother that was a fairly well-known beader?
Yeah.
Because I noticed that you incorporated beadwork into some of your work, like Where I Will Find You. And this is a slightly more abstract piece. I mean, apple pie, I would say, is definitely more in the abstract realm. You can kind of make of it what you will, even though it was clearly representative of apple pie to your teacher. But Where I Will Find You, it's definitely more open to interpretation. Could you talk about that work and kind of how it came together, and why you decided to incorporate beadwork into that?
So my grandma has a bag of buckskin, and it's just like pieces that are just like scrap pieces that are like put aside from a bigger piece, and it's just a really big bag. And I always look at it and I'm like, I want to like utilize that buckskin because it's just sitting there, and if I don't use it, I don't know. It just messes with my mind when something's not used. And I was like, I want to incorporate that into a piece of work of mine because a lot of that scrap was my grandma's and she cut it up and all of that. And so using the scraps that she cut out and not really manipulating them or cutting them themselves really made the piece feel like it was me and her, like me and her
Yeah.
working on the project. And the beads were given to me by her. All of the material for that project was given to me by her. And so it is like sort of like a me and her type project. The only thing that wasn't hers was the canvas that was painted on. And so I really wanted to have a really personal piece that included parts of her onto it, both of us together onto the work. And so
that seems to be a theme throughout a lot of these pieces, is that they have this personal connection. Yeah. And so is that a lot of the stuff that you're drawing on is, what has personal significance to you, and then fashioning pieces that are kind of inspired by those moments?
Yeah. I really like to make art that's really personal to me because I feel like I'm a really shy and quiet person. And so I feel like when I add stories or personal parts of me into my art, I'm connecting with others and sharing a part of me, and they can interpret the piece, whether it be with or without words. And so
And is there some, being, slightly more on the introverted side then, is there kind of an apprehension in making yourself and exposing this part of yourself? You talked about the pieces of kozo paper on which you had written some of these memories. That's, in sharing these personal things, you're then kind of inviting strangers into that part of your world. Is there a little apprehension or trepidation about that, or are you comfortable with that?
Like sometimes I am. I like try to make it more like the story's a little vague, so it's like I'm not fully telling the full story, but I'm also just like oh, this is a cold room or something like that. Like using very descriptive adjectives in the sentences to make sure that like you can get like you when you're reading something you can like feel that atmosphere that I'm trying to create and try to like relate it to the viewer can maybe relate to like something within themselves when they're reading a piece or the description of an artwork. And so
And before we turn back to you, Ashley, and talk about how SFCC or the faculty is working with some of these tribes, I'm curious about your own tribal background, because I don't think I've talked about it or mentioned it. So I'm curious about your own tribal background and maybe how that larger background or that history is informing some of your work as well.
Yeah, so I'm Shoshone Bannock, which is located on the Fort Hall Indian Reservation in Southeast Idaho. I'm also Chippewa Cree. My grandma was Chippewa Cree, and so I have a lot of family up there, and they're from Rocky Boy, Montana, which is in northern Montana. And my tribe is, I think we're pretty cool.
I think everybody's a little biased towards it. Yeah.
And then we're really well-known beaders, and so I think that's pretty cool that I get to see a lot of beadwork wherever I go, especially down there in our powwow. There's a lot of beadwork for sale, and there's a lot of outfits and accessories or like hair accessories or earrings that are beaded really nicely, and I'm like, wow, like I take a lot of pride in knowing that I come from a tribe that's really well known for their beading, and so I try to do my best when I'm beading, and so yeah.
And so is there any inclination, because I've seen some of the intricate beadwork and just looked on in awe, because I know that myself I would find that incredibly challenging. Is there any kind of impetus on your part to maybe integrate more of that beadwork into your work for both the tribal connection and that very personal connection with your grandmother?
Yeah, so during this residency, I really want to start, really want to start doing beading more. When I was still in school, I experimented with beading, or not beading, embroidering onto painted canvases. And so I really want to do putting beads, sewing beads onto a painted canvas. I think that would really add a lot of depth and then contrast, but also experimenting with more text with the beads, like sewing the beads in a way where it forms text, and then you have to read the beads onto the canvas and really,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, you know.
It sounds really cool. And I always, obviously the traditional, maybe single arts are admirable, but I like the idea of mixed media. And when folks like to explore that and incorporate something into again the traditional single media, and then introduce things like the beadwork would be really cool.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, then, how did you hear about this in order to apply? Because here we are in Spokane. The program has only been around for about a year. Yeah, how did you hear about it?
Yeah, so it was in June. I received an email from one of my professors from the university, and he was like, "I think you should apply to this." And I was like, "Okay, I will." And so I did. And the professor, his name's Casey Doyle. He's awesome. Hi, Casey. If you're watching, he's awesome. I'm really grateful that he notified me of this opportunity, and I was lucky enough to get the chance to apply and come here, and I'm really happy. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, and we'll get back to what you are hoping. I mean, you've already touched on this a little bit, to what you're hoping to do with the residency and the things that you're hoping to explore over the next 3 months. But Ashley, I wanted to talk to you about, Claire raises a point that I hadn't considered, that you can work directly with tribes and let them know about this. But the other thing is to work with art instructors and say, if you have any students, promising students along these lines, then here's an opportunity. So yeah, what sort of outreach and collaboration or coordination is SFC doing with other universities?
It's a great question, and I think that the work has developed over the last year and a half or so, for 2 years. I think from the very beginning, COSED has had a lot of outreach to area universities. Our faculty all work pretty regularly with faculty at the area universities. We work very hard to connect our students with transfer universities, and we take them on tours and bring in representatives from area universities to make sure our students can see the next steps for themselves, and to make that process for them as easy as possible, so that they don't just view their training at SFCC as the end of their training, right? It's a lifelong pursuit, and whether they go to a 4-year university after they finish with us, or whether they go into the workforce, either way, we want to make sure that there's that support available to them.
Right.
Last year, Spokane Colleges brought on our new Director of Tribal Relations, Dr. Naomi Bender, who is phenomenal, and she's been working to build those tribal relationships. It's been a really significant transition for the college to bring her in and to really continue. I mean, it's not a new work for the institution, but to deepen relationships and make sure that the institution is working from a place of service. We, like I said before, we are here to serve the community. We are the community colleges, and we're not serving the community if we're not serving the whole community. And if we're not serving the tribes in our area, if we're not serving our indigenous communities, we're not fulfilling our mission.
And it's very easy for me to focus on Claire, since she's kind of got the spotlight on her as the artist in residence. Yeah. But you went through a title change recently, and so you're in a much more augmented position now. What's shaking there? With this new title, because you went from director of drama to a title that was much more all-encompassing.
Right. It's been a big transition over the last few years. So of course now I'm overseeing the visual performing and applied arts, which is a really exciting transition. I joke about how I used to create events personally and direct theater productions, and now I get complimented on my emails, which is an interesting
an art form
transition.
unto itself. Yeah.
But it is a very different kind of joy to be able to support so many artists and to be able to broaden my focus to hundreds and hundreds of our students, and being able to bring art students into all of our different programs and help them. I mean, you mentioned before about how the struggle, right? You're studying arts. How are you going to support yourself? And that is a goal of the college, to help students understand and explore how they can commit to their passion, build their own skills, and find a way those skills to lucrative work that's going to support them. Because it's not a question of being a starving artist or, being an accountant. It's not that. It's not a polarity like that. You can be an artist and still find ways to support yourself and lead a really fulfilling life by serving the community, serving your own artistic ambitions, and supporting yourself is possible.
And so this artist in residency program, is there, I mean, maybe this isn't the place to necessarily divulge, but is there more stuff like this kind of in the works? Are you planning to launch any larger or more far-reaching initiatives along these lines?
There's always dreams in the works. We right now, the focus on the residency, there's a commitment to 5 years. We're in the second year. And so there's a significant focus and commitment to exploring ways to expand even beyond the 5 years that we originally committed to, and expanding across campus in other areas. Right now, we have been focused, and a lot of the focus has been on this brand new building and what this new building can offer artists and residents. But like you said, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And so we are actively exploring ways to keep the program going, expand the program, because it is so beneficial to not just the artists that we bring in, but also to serving our role in building the artistic community in this region.
Yeah, and to the wider community as well. I mean, obviously there's some personal benefit for the artist as a career building opportunity and a skill building opportunity, but also to the community, which it ends up being exposed to art that they might not have seen otherwise.
Right.
So yeah,
absolutely, the broader community, and I keep coming back to our students. Having someone in the building like Claire is such a benefit to the students, to be able to see someone committed to lifelong learning and continued learning beyond undergraduate education, and seeing someone bring their own skills and their own focus just broadens what our students kind of imagine for themselves.
And so in the near term, there's this Here and Now exhibition that runs until February, or runs until March.
It runs through
And it runs
February 10th.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, that's right. So the Here and Now exhibition, you're going to have some pieces in that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Any of the pieces that I mentioned?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
The three circle paintings. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so folks will get to see that up close in real life. And are other faculty exhibiting in this as well?
There are 16 artists, including Claire. We also have 3 staff members who are practicing artists themselves, and our staff at Spokane Falls in the building, and then another dozen of our current faculty. So it is a really diverse show. Really, really exciting show. I love when we get to bring in faculty and staff to really showcase what they're doing, because virtually every single one of our faculty have their own artistic practice. Right? They continue their own work in the community. They have a significant impact on the Spokane arts community outside of their day job.
right. So it's a good time. It's an early point to see some of your existing work. Now, obviously, you're going to be creating work, hopefully, during this artist residency. What are some things, in addition to the beadwork, or maybe the beadwork is going to be the primary focus, that you're hoping to, kind of add to your artistic arsenal, and what are you hoping to get out of the residency?
Yeah. So. I am taking like a jewelry class with Pete, and So far, it's been interesting because throughout my undergrad years, I never worked with metal at all. And so learning how to work with metal, the safety procedures, and then the tools, all that has been a learning curve for me a bit. But it's fun. I really want to learn more about jewelry. From the first few days that I've attended the class, it's different than just like earrings or necklaces. I'm just like, oh, there's more than just accessories that you can wear, and so I'm learning a lot from Pete and then the students, seeing how they're how they interact with one another and the art that they're creating. I think it's really fun to see that, and I also get a lot of inspiration from the students as well. Let's see, and I hope throughout this residency, I want to paint more, of course, but I also really want to take I really want to really take advantage of the classes and opportunities that the college offers. So, like, again, the jewelry class, I want to learn more about it. I want to work a lot with metal, maybe work with it. I don't know yet. Like, it's only my first week,
Yeah.
so I'm still learning the ropes of everything, but I'm really excited to see what I do and what I create. And I'm also doing ceramics. I've been doing ceramics for a few years now, but it's been a while since I've thrown on a wheel, which is mainly what I like to do, is pottery. That's what I want to do. And so I hope to go back and start learning how to throw again, and then I like mugs or cups, ceramic functional ceramic pieces, and
Yeah.
so that's what I like to do. And yeah, I just want to make stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
So
have
is-
a plan. But
So is
yeah.
there, and I'm not asking that you go in with a plan, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's best to see what arises spontaneously, but is there going to be kind of a final exhibition where we'll be able to see maybe some of the pieces that you have created? Or, is that part of this?
Honestly, I don't even know. Like, I sometimes think
No
there is, but
pressure.
I don't
No
even
pressure.
know.
Right now, so the part of the plan or the goal for the residency is to allow as much open space as possible. So there's this first exhibit that's going on now, but from there we wait to see what the artist wants to present, and try to support them in connecting them to other galleries that they can exhibit. And so that's one of the other goals that we have, is to help connect them deeper into the community and in different areas of the community to showcase, hopefully, the work that they've done during the residency.
Yeah, and those connections are huge, and they can be kind of the make or break between, starving artists and non-starving artists.
Right.
So yeah. Again, no pressure.
Well,
No, but it'll be cool to see what comes out of that. So yeah. So I feel like that's a good time to wrap up this portion of the interview. I don't know if you're fully prepared for what comes next. That usually these are in two parts.
Okay.
So we have the interview, where we talk very generally about your areas of expertise, and then there's the lightning round.
oh,
So we're gonna move into the lightning round.
okay.
Here we go.
So the first one is always an either or question. Ashley, I'm going to start with you. I don't want to put Claire on this. I don't want to start with Claire and put her on the
Start
spot.
with me.
So I'm going to start with you. So, but it's going to be the same question. So the good news is that you're going to have some time to
Oh,
think
yeah.
about this while Ashley is struggling to come up with an answer. So the first is an either or. And would you rather relive a moment from your past or catch a glimpse of your future?
Relive a moment from my past.
Okay, so you're worried about what the future might hold. Okay. I did wonder if Claire would have a different answer to this, since she's at a different stage of her of her career. So relive a moment of the past, huh?
I think so. I want to keep surprises for the future.
Okay.
It's not that I dread the future. It's that I want to wait and find out as it comes. I don't think you can fully understand or appreciate if you don't know the context. But in the past, we know the context. And so if you're going to have the opportunity to really sit in that and experience it again with even more context, because you're further ahead in your timeline, I think that would be a really rich opportunity.
And you don't have to get specific, but you can just give a yes or no. Is there a moment that comes to mind that you wouldn't mind revisiting from your past?
Oh, probably young romance.
Enough said.
Days with my
Enough said.
husband.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Claire?
Okay. I'd probably just relive the past.
Relive a moment from the past? Okay.
Relive the moment in the past.
Okay, so you're going to leave all the surprises to the future. Okay.
Yeah. I thought about it. I was like, well, let's see. I could look in the future, but it's also like there would be me being like, okay, when's that moment gonna happen? And then I'm just like, okay, well, if I go back to the past, it'd be like, okay, I don't regret anything that I did in the past, and so it's like, if I did, I just do the same thing again. So it's like, I live with what I did in the past, and so it's like whatever happens, happens.
Okay, no regrets. That's healthy. That's healthy.
Yeah.
Either a life well lived or
Exactly.
And so the next question touches on something that you brought up. And so when you were talking about this, I thought, ooh, that's a lightning round question. We've kind of anticipated this. So of late, I've been very much taken with the idea of biophilia, which is that there are kind of these innate affinities that we have towards nature and natural materials and natural processes. But I was curious as to your most memorable experience in nature.
In nature.
Yeah. And when you said, "Oh, I'm a bit of an indoor person, I love nature and I depict nature." And I thought, "Oh, I wonder if she's going to have some trouble with this." But surely there must be a moment out in nature when you've had a really memorable experience.
Memorable experience. There's so many. Let's see. Okay. When I was younger, we'd go to Stanley a lot to camp, and we'd take our dog with us, and oh my gosh, sometimes our dog would get off the leash and they'd run past like cars that were driving by our campground. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, I like cringe at it whenever I think about it, because I'm like, oh no, for the people. But I'm also like, the dog almost got ran over by this car. And so that's probably one of the moments, is camping and having the dogs running loose all around. And so.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Ashley.
Oh, so many options. My grad school was in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And so we lived in Wellington when my oldest son was very young, when I was working on my MFA. And the wind in Wellington was just, I was about to say, blew me away. So cheesy. But it was really shocking. And I still remember the visceral experience of feeling the intense wind that I had never really experienced before in my life, the intense cold wind. I grew up in Southern California, then was in Hawaii. So I'm used to warm wind, but that cold wind in Wellington that just pushes you over and just is really invigorating. And it brings so much joy just experiencing it.
The cold, bracing Wellington wind. I feel like, there's a poem or a folk song that's ready to be written about that, if it hasn't already.
Right.
Okay, cool.
I'm sure there's some.
And maybe you can experience it for yourself and depict it in a watercolor. That'd be kind of cool. All right. Third question. There are only 4 total, so we're halfway through. Did you have a best? This is a 2-parter, actually. Did you have a best friend growing up?
I did.
Okay.
Her name is My Lindley.
And where are they now?
In Virginia.
Okay. Is that where you grew up initially?
No, she moved. She moved to work in DC.
Okay.
And has lived there for a couple of decades now, or a decade. But we grew up in Southern California.
Oh, okay.
And then went separate ways.
Did you live in the same general area? Is that it? Because childhood friendships can, just be predicated on like the most, the loosest criteria. It's like, oh, hey, you're wearing red. My favorite color is red. We're best buddies now. What brought you two together?
School. We did not live in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
So it was definitely school and a love for theater.
Cool.
And politics, actually. We both were in Mala United Nations and did some of the...
That's fantastic.
But mostly theater.
And that explains the move to DC.
Yes.
Or maybe
Right.
just to be in that orbit. Best friend growing up.
Yes, we're still in touch.
That's good.
We met in 6th grade. So for my 6th grade, we all came from different elementaries, and that's where I met her in our main classroom. And we've been through so much. We grew up together, graduated together, and then through the past 5 years since we've graduated, it's been a big journey. And I'm very happy to call her my best friend because we can always joke with each other, and then we also give each other a lot of support and always check up on one another.
Do you want to give her a shout out too?
Yeah. Hi, Brianna. I miss you. I haven't seen her in a long time because we both live in different places. She still lives in our hometown, and I'm up in Moscow, and so it's like I barely get to see her, but we message all the time. So
yeah. Cool. All right, and then finally, and you're going to start off with this one. This is something you crave fairly regularly, and so. And I realize that that's kind of open to interpretation because you could say, "Oh, I crave, intellectual stimulation," and that's what. But what I kind of have in mind is like guilty pleasures.
Okay.
Do you crave a certain food? Yeah, you've got one. Okay.
I really crave Dutch Bros Golden Eagle coffee. The Golden Eagle iced is like a latte but with caramel in it, and so that's what I crave like every day is Dutch Bros coffee.
Okay, and that sates your craving when you get one of those. Okay.
Yeah, so that's my craving. Or a Rebel, which is like an energy drink with syrup in it. I'm a big Dutch Bros fan. I have been ever since I started college, and so Dutch Bros.
Yeah, that'll do it. The late night study sessions and
Yeah.
The fuel for exams. Ashley, something you crave?
Mine goes back to college too. Reese's peanut butter cups, but they can't be the regular kind. They have to be the holiday kind that aren't hard on the outside. So they've got like the pumpkin shapes or Easter egg shapes. The consistency and the ratio of chocolate to peanut butter is better in those.
Better being very subjective because I like the textural difference between the snap, the harder chocolate and then
to each his own.
Yeah. But that's the whole point of the lightning round. We tease out all these personal preferences. Well, thank you for taking part in the lightning round, and thank you for coming in here and talking today about the artist in residency program and all the stuff that you've got going on. In terms of your own artistic career, and then the larger things that are happening at SFCC. So thank you, Claire. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, EJ.
Thank you.
It's really great to be here.